Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and a very good evening to all of you. It is a great pleasure to participate in the 2019 Raisina Dialogue. Allow me to thank the people and government of India and the Observer Research Foundation for their hospitality and excellent arrangements, and for providing this opportunity to engage in a dialogue on a world reorder. I think these two pivotal concepts, dialogue and world reorder, are very apt for our contemporary situation and deserve serious attention. First, dialogue. Dialogue, by definition, requires a readiness to listen and re-examine assumptions. As defined by the Global Agenda on Dialogue Among Civilizations, adopted unanimously by the UN General Assembly a few weeks after the September 11 tragedy of 2001, dialogue is founded on inclusion and a collective desire to learn, uncover and examine assumptions, unfold shared meaning and core values, and integrate multiple perspectives. Indeed, a genuine dialogue requires equal footing and mutual respect, as well as recognition of diversified sources of knowledge and wisdom. It should aim at achieving mutual enrichment and identification and promotion of common ground in order to address common challenges. I've been quoting the Global Agenda on Dialogue Among Civilizations of 2001. In this vein, dialogue becomes a new global paradigm, as opposed to the prevailing paradigm of exclusion. For centuries, even millennia, politicians defined relations within a zero-sum paradigm, that there had to be winners and losers in every situation. Many criteria were either found or invented to construct the other side. In other words, the side to be excluded. Diversity, be it geographical, political, civilizational, cultural, religious, patterns of military alliance, or levels of economic development, has been perceived as a threat, and thus grounds for exclusion. Enemies, based on real or perceived differences, serve not only to justify exclusion, but in fact as a convenient managerial tool. The need for an enemy as a managerial tool has been so prevalent, so pervasive, that at times enemies have been actually forged. Demonization, the requirement for an enemy, itself requires and breeds ignorance of the other, and not only produces enemies, but creates a perpetual state of confrontation. The realities of our globalized world, my friends, have shattered the applicability of such zero-sum perspective. Our approach to challenges, ranging from environmental degradation, global economy, transfer of knowledge and technology and trade, to eradication of extremism and terrorism, organized crime, weapons of mass destruction, and other challenges, can bring about either a positive outcome or a negative outcome, either a positive sum or a negative sum. If we approach these common challenges based on the prevalent zero-sum mentality, we will all lose. We will all lose. Only the degree of loss will be different. We will all lose and end up with a negative sum outcome. Some lose less, some lose more. In the era of globalization, even globalization of information and even emotions, there can be no island of stability, security, or prosperity in the turbulent ocean of poverty and insecurity. So dialogue, as the theme of this conference represents, a revolutionary departure, where our common humanity and common vulnerabilities become better tools for global governance than perceived or manufactured enemies. To sum up, and I'm quoting, dialogue brings with it equal footing, as it is a process by which we accept as much as we want to be accepted. We include as much as we want to be included. We listen as much as we want to be listened to. Dialogue can be a framework where the weakest is accorded the privilege to be listened to, and the strongest finds it necessary to explain its case to others. Let me now turn to the second pivotal concept, a world reorder. We all know that we live in a transitional phase where the convenience of a global order, which channeled and organized our expectations, is no more. It brings with it the danger of miscalculations, which can make the difference between rise or demise of any country or region. This is all highlights the fundamental challenge here, namely correcting cognitive disorders. Allow me to put forward another proposition. The emerging global order is post-Western. That is not derogatory to the West, but rather a statement of simple reality, that the West, as a geographic or political construct, does no longer possess a monopoly over all consequential global developments. Today, it is evident that unlike the early 20th century, all important events do not take place in the West. And unlike only a few decades ago, the West no longer controls or even influences all significant developments elsewhere. I will spare you from the details and rather posit that the practical implication of this shift for our volatile neighborhood in West, Central, and South Asia is that we cannot expect the West to provide us with all the remedies, nor can we blame it for all our maladies. Distinguished friends, our region, however we choose to define it, since regions are not rigid geographies, but flexible analytical constructs, is seen as the locus of many global problems, particularly extremism and terrorism, be it West Asia, Central Asia, or South Asia. It is easy for us in this neighborhood to blame the West as the ultimate culprit in our problems. There is no shortage of historical facts. At the same time, it has been even more convenient for the West to blame us, particularly the Muslims, for problems arriving on its shores. Finger pointing in both directions, and even within our regions, is perhaps the easiest diversion. But the situation is far too serious for a game of blame. While there is a lot of blame to go around, believe me, there is a lot of blame to go around. We need to break the habit of always throwing the ball in the other's court. Friends, as I elaborated in the opening of my thoughts here, it is high time for the countries in our region, this neighborhood, to abandon two destructive illusions: that security can be bought or imported, and that security can be achieved at the expense of insecurity of others. We need to stop rehashing our grievances and our narratives of past history and move in the direction of establishing a working and yet modest and realistic regional mechanism. We cannot wish away our differences, nor can we neglect the anxieties borne by divergences in size or human or natural resources. We can start with a regional dialogue forum, particularly in the Persian Gulf region, which has been the scene of so many wars in the last 4 decades, from Saddam Hussein's aggression against Iran and later against Kuwait, to US operations, and finally to the humanitarian nightmare in Yemen today. Admission to this regional dialogue forum should be based on accepting, and our European friends could easily recognize this, generally recognized principles and shared objectives, notably respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the political independence of all states, the inviolability of international boundaries, non-interference in the internal and external affairs of others, peaceful settlement of disputes, impermissibility of threat or use of force in international relations, and promotion of peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. These are the ticket principles. A forum such as this could help promote understanding and interaction at the levels of government, the private sector, and civil society, and lead to agreement on a broad spectrum of issues, including confidence-building measures, combating terrorism, extremism, and sectarianism, ensuring freedom of navigation and free flow of oil and other resources, and the protection of the environment, which is becoming an imminent existential challenge, particularly for our neighbors in the southern Persian Gulf. We need, my friends, we need a strong region rather than the dominance of strong men in our region. From our perspective, a strong region is characterized by the following attributes: homegrown political and territorial stability, reliance on the populace as the source of legitimacy, security, and prosperity, harmonization of national identities and regional citizenship, participation of all relevant regional countries in ensuring peace in the region through regional institutions, organizations, and ad hoc arrangements, more confidence, more trade, and more interaction between and among countries in the region than between them and external powers. Economic relations and people-centered interactions making any resort to war costly and untenable. A regional culture that will place national security on a par with regional security. And finally, a sustainable regional environment. We in Iran have been forced into a privileged position of relying solely on our own population as the source of our security and advancement, while welcoming the opportunity to progress through regional and global interaction. We have also learned that we can only attain security in a secure region, where our neighbors also enjoy internal and external stability. Guided by common sense, we recognize that the era of global and regional hegemony is long gone, and that a stronger region is in our interest, in the interest of the entire region, and even in the interest of the entire world. Thus, we are prepared to engage our neighbors and all those interested in the stability of this pivotal yet volatile region, based on mutual and collective compliance with the following principles and objectives. 1, preservation of territorial integrity and the stability of the countries in the region through the strengthening of domestic good governance and the prevention of external aggression and intervention. 2, promotion of good governance throughout the region. 3, exercise of strategic self-restraint by all regional actors. 4, non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, eradication of weapons of mass destruction, and prevention of costly and destabilizing conventional arms race. 5, promotion of regional balance and rejection of hegemony by regional or supraregional powers. 6, strengthening of regional economic prowess and governance. 7, adherence to multilateralism, even in economic and commercial interactions. And finally, connectivity and more efficient utilization of transit routes between North and South and East and West. We share with India many commonalities in forging such a neighborhood in South, Central, and West Asia. We also extend our hand of friendship to our neighbors in the Persian Gulf region, again, in order to move in this direction. I thank you for your attention.